And here we are. It's time for our interview, and I'm delighted to introduce to you David Bujara. He is currently Chief Scout of Morpeth AFC, I want to say. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, honestly, our pleasure, definitely. So listeners of the pod will know that I'm aspiring to be a scout, and we've interacted a little bit on Twitter, and I thought I need to talk to someone, find out how the job works and find out what this kind of world is. I've read a few books about it, a book called The Nowhere Men that I imagine you've read, that really kind of made me fall in love with it a little bit. Have you read that book?
Yeah, that was like when the first idea of it sort of comes to you. I've said this to people before, like scouting. It's one of those sort of mythical jobs where you see people do it and you think, how do you get a job like that? I think I said to somebody one time, it's like, how do you end up on a pit crew for a Formula One team or something?
Right.
Yeah, it exists, but it's like, how? So when this sort of scouting thing hit me, thinking, fancy trying to give that a go. That was then the next stage was read that book and sort of take it from there. So I think a lot of people, 99% of people, maybe read that book when they sort of get this urge of, I wonder if I could be a football scout. So yeah, it's got a lot to sort of owe for this influx of people maybe wanting to be football scouts, that book. So yeah, it's a good thing.
It is. I definitely recommend reading it, but it's good. It's a good point because I remember. So I grew up watching Crew Alexandra, right, which was a really a very good youth system. There was always scouts in the stadium, always. And again, as a kid, I remember being with my dad, sat down, and just seeing these men writing in their books and not talking to each other and looking very serious. I was like, "Who are they? Who are they?" And just finding it so fascinating, But we'll go back to the very beginning. So from your accent, I'm guessing you're from the Northeast, right?
Yeah. So will people know? But most people think Newcastle, Middlesbrough, that's about it. But I'm from the south of County Durham. So it's a little place called Shildon, like a little town, South County Durham. And then from that, I suppose our nearest at the time bigger team would be Darlington, but I'm a Middlesbrough supporter. So out of all my friends, there's just me in my hometown supports Borough. And then it's like a big split on Sunderland and Newcastle. And I was just the unfortunate one that decided Middlesbrough would be my club of choice.
Well, that's funny enough. I've got a friend who's a Borough fan as well.
Right.
I do have a soft spot for Borough because of that, really. But so when you were growing up, what era of Borough was that? That was kind of like the hate. It would have been the 90s when they were in the Premier League, that kind of time.
So it's really weird, I think. So, when we talked about bits and pieces before and we were talking about things and you say about you growing up with football. So it might be a little bit hard to believe, but it wasn't until I went into secondary school that I really started getting this love of football. So, this will be a good thing because people will probably look and think you look a lot older than what you're telling us. But I was born in 1985, so I started secondary school in September 1996. So Euro, I remember watching a few matches on Euro 96.
Okay.
But that sort of started this interest in football, and then my big awakening, I suppose, would have been World Cup 98, because I remember watching everything in World Cup 98. My friends were out in parks in whatever on a Saturday, and I'm like, no, I'm sitting in to watch Nigeria against Sweden. I don't care. I'm not coming outside, So yeah, it is weird now thinking what I do and how much I love football and how much I love doing what I do, to think that I wasn't one of these kids that wanted to be in the park from 4 or 5 years old kicking a football around. But sort of once I was hooked. So yeah.
What's up, everyone? I'm here too for this interview.
Sorry, Tommy, we completely forgot to introduce you.
No, it's okay. Look, this one, I was telling Rory, I was telling David when the mics were off. It's just very interesting for me because I've never met a football scout before, and I just want to, just kind of sit back and listen. But so I just wanted to ask you. So it doesn't take. I thought that scouts were always people who had been in the game, that played football. So we're already getting rid of that stereotype, right? A scout can be somebody who started watching football when they were 13 years old.
Yeah, so I mean, like Rory, you just said there about the guys when you were younger and the crew and the blokes are there.
Mm-hmm.
A good chance is they were either ex-pros or they had some connection to somebody within football, and that's how they've got in. I think that's the vast majority of people. If you said, how have you become a football scout? It's because you were an ex-pro or you played football to a decent level. That was the thing. But as we've seen with a lot of it, we're getting in the sphere of football. It's not as closed anymore. So we'll all know the stories are like people who through social media have done fantastic work. They've put it out there for people to see, and then they've managed to get a role within a club, or they've managed to get a role within an organization that deals with football. And I was very much like that. Like my standard of football was absolutely shocked. I'll try not to say any bad words on your podcast, but I was
you don't have to worry about
that. I was absolutely shocking.
Right.
And there'll be people who will end up watching this that can testify to that for you. So
don't worry, the average level on this podcast on a football pitch is pretty low. We can say that.
Yeah. I'll join in on that one there. But it was just it's opening up. It's becoming more accessible because people now understand that you can look at football in maybe a different way, or you need a fresh set of eyes on things, because for a lot of clubs, the way things were going, it's just a never-ending cycle of, we'll do A and get to B and then get to C, and then it's not really work, so we'll go back to A, and it's just round and round, the same names. We do it with managers. How many times in the Premier League was it just the same old name? Who's going to be the new manager of so-and-so club? The same names that get drawled out every time a club needs a manager. So, and then it's like looking at things differently, and it's started at the top and then it's finally sort of filtering its way down. So my thing was, no proper football experience. I wasn't an academy player. I wasn't a semi-pro to National League or whatever. I wasn't even a Northern League player. But what I've done is I've come in and you work and you look and you learn how to do things and you put your spin on things, and then it's just about how you approach it and your work. And, if you work the right way and you're sure that you're willing to progress and learn, I might never get to the top. I might never get to the Man Cities and the Chelseas and the Liverpools and the like. But I'm progressing and learning enough that I'm comfortable at the levels where I'm thinking this is where I want to be. And I know now, doing what I have done, if I work and if I keep progressing and your work's good and you're trusted as a scout, you can progress. So there is, for people that maybe watch this, there are opportunities, but you've got to prove to a lot of people that you're worth giving those opportunities to, I suppose. So if that makes sense.
No, it does. Absolutely. I love that. But there's something you said there I find quite interesting. What is it that you think caused that change in mentality from people just recycling the same players over and over again? We'll give this guy another chance. We'll give this way another chance. What do you think caused? Was it social media that kind of opened that up, or do you think it was something else that caused that sea change?
I don't know. I suppose maybe as we go back, I'll keep using that same sort of phrase, that sphere of football, but maybe as the age within that dropped, the people that did come in at some level, so whoever the first club was that went, you know what it is, we're going to give this young lad who's come out of university an opportunity. So if you go back, I've said this to my wife before, that when I went to university, I wish I'd done something sports related, knowing now where that's gone, because I would have been in a very early generation of people who had a sports-based degree, sports analysis, whatever that might be, to then be in a club, whereas you see those people now and they are the high up at some good clubs because they got in at the first tier. Whereas there's a lot of people wanting to do it now because a lot of clubs are looking for those kind of people, academic people. So whatever that first club was that brought the young people in, then once they've been in there, those young people then have the idea of, let's bring other young people in and other young people. And then clubs have jumped on board. Yeah, there are still clubs out there. We've seen them. Well, you know, I don't want to talk bad about people, but look at Newcastle, Mike Ashley. What we're going to do, we're going to get Steve Bruce. Now, Steve Bruce is a good manager. He is. You kind of, people are going, oh, he's not, he's a dinosaur, he's this, that, and the other. But you don't hang around at the very top levels of management if you're absolutely shocking. Yeah. So he's not absolutely shocking. He's just not maybe the right manager or the right type of manager to then take a club forward these days.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but things adapt, so you can't just go back to, again, it's the same thing round and round and round, and then it's taken somebody to look at it differently. And what do we want to do? Yeah, we're going to go for a younger manager. We want to go for this. We want to go for that. We want to fill our backroom team with not older people. We want to fill them with younger people with different ideas, blah, blah, blah. So it's then the cycle starts changing. Not every club's on board, like I say, but a lot of clubs are. And then once clubs see how club A, B, and C are now reaching the top levels, right? Well, we want to be club D, and we want to be club E, and we want to be club F. And before you know it, everyone's joining it. So now you see it further down the leagues. So it's not just, and I know I'm just talking about like English football, but it's not just Premier League, then it's Championship, then it's League One, then it's League Two, and now it's into non-league, that people are realising that to progress as a club, we need to think like the top clubs. So let's plug my club. So we at Morpeth you know, like the whole idea is we want to progress. We want to move forward. Yes, we're in the Northern Premier League at the minute, but why don't we want to go to the National League North? Why don't we want to go to the National League? Why? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's a long way off, but you've got to put the behind the scenes things right. So like the Chief Scout title that I've got in the Chief Scout role this season, that is the first time, I think, that the club has had that as a proper role. Wow. We've got a sporting director who is part-time sporting director, and he still plays as well. So that's a bit
nice,
one,
right?
You know, but non-league football, everyone does a little bit of everything, don't they? Because that's what it's like. But you know, that's brand new because the club are looking and thinking we need the structure off the pitch. It's not just about putting money on the pitch. You need the structure off the pitch. So it's reaching that far down. People are realizing if you want to progress, you've got to think like the top level clubs, and all the top level clubs mixing recruitment styles, data analysis, video, live scouting. Nice big mixing pot of everything to get the best out of their club.
I think it's great.
And like off topic, but
no, that's great. That's great. But I think because it's again really interesting that I think the rise in level of like the National League, for example, over the past 10 years has been insane. Like the rise in quality, the rise in like the clubs, and like you're right, the level of like staffing and the kind of advancement of it has been genuinely incredible. I think it's one of the great things about the English football pyramid is that these lower down clubs are doing things like that, and it leaves, for example, in Italy, the lower level teams, it's not even comparable at this point. Really, like Serie C to League One is like just not the same thing, and I think it's one of the great things about English football. So let's talk about Morpeth and your role, right? So how, with a team with, I'm going to guess, limited resources, right? How do you implement a system that's trying to learn from the top level teams?
So in a perfect world, like I just sort of hinted at there, you have that. I almost said it. I said this before almost on the podcast. I was going to say 3-way, but it's
right.
So yeah,
That's fine.
it is because it's live scouting, video scouting, and data analysis. In a perfect world, you have those three things, and everything comes together very nicely. So you've gone from God knows how many thousands of players down to hundreds of players, down to tens of players to find the player that you want to bring in. At our level, we can do a little bit of that because we will look above. So like Y Scout has stuff on the National League North. We will look into the National League North this summer for players. But equally, we're going to go into the Northern League, which we're step 3 in the league. And then you have the divisions below us. So the Northern League's like 2 divisions down. Well, there's no data. There's hardly any video. Club might put a highlights package on Twitter or something like that, but you don't have that in full match to watch. So it's hard because you cannot do what the very top teams do, you know what I mean? So we rely on a lot more traditional scouting methods than I would say even a National League North club, because then they'll be looking at the National League or League 2 maybe for players and things like that. And the data and the video is available. So for me, it's a good mix because I am maybe a little bit of a traditionalist. I do, as much as I understand the need for data, I understand the need for video and how it really does help and make the process a lot quicker, because you can watch 2 or 3 videos of matches on a laptop. By the time it takes me to go and drive to a match, watch the game, and then drive back. Yeah. You know what I mean? So even with Morpeth, you know, I can do just over an hour's worth of traveling to get to a game. When I was doing stuff for like Crawley and things like that, there was sometimes I was having like a 5-hour drive to get to a match, to cover a match, and then 5 hours back, and your match on top of that, and blah, blah, blah. So just imagine how many matches you could do just watching it off a laptop. But then you miss out on things because being at a live match, and you see little things that the camera doesn't pick out because you don't get that lovely wide angle. If you're at the very top level, you go onto Y Scout, you get like almost like a tactic. You can get like a tactical view a lot of times. So it's right the way back and you can see everything and blah, blah, blah. But the video that I would watch from my level on Y Scout or Instat or whatever, it's like just watching it on the TV. It tracks the ball.
Okay,
you know
it's the automatic cameras, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so then you're missing out things. You maybe want to, I don't know. Yeah, the ball gets played over the top, the striker gets onto it, they score a goal. But have you seen that run? Have you seen the movement to get in behind? Is it good movement? Is it poor defending? If you're at the match, you can see it. If you're not, then so it's not all the time, but there's these little things that being there sort of you can pull out more than just watching it on a video. And like I say, also, I have a soft spot for it as well, because my scouting journey started in No,
sir, keep going, don't worry.
All right, I was going to say, because my scouting journey started off in the very lower reaches of semi-professional football, Northern League Division 2. So it was always just live football. Scouting was always, for me to begin with, live football, going to a match in the sun, in the wet, in the snow, in the rain, whatever, and taking notes while you were there. So I still have it. I just love it. I love being out at matches. Although, like I say, I do understand that data analysis and video matches you can get a lot more done in the same amount of time. But it's a bit of a heart rule and head type thing.
Yeah, also because I was thinking you may drive for 1 hour to go watch a football game between Tommi FC and Ruairi FC. But once you've seen that good right back that had an incredible game, you probably need to be watching that right back multiple times before you tell your club, I think this is a good fit for us. Or sometimes I'm asking you, is it enough to see a player one time to be like, all right, that's the guy that we need?
For me, no. I mean, you can watch a player and think we off that one performance, we would sign them, but you've got to go back and check that it wasn't a one-off. So you may fall in love with somebody when you see them. I've done it myself plenty of times and thought, oh yeah, if they become available, we should get them, no doubt. You go back and watch them again, and it's the same thing. Yeah, love them. Then you maybe send somebody else to go and watch them. So like at Morpeth, I'm fortunate enough, I've got a few guys work alongside me as well, so we can get multiple views of players off different people. They might go and watch them and they'll have a bad game, and you think, well, 2 good, 1 bad. It's still all right. Then someone else watches them, they have a shocker, and someone else watches them, they have a shocker. And then I might go back again because I'm watching another player on a different team, but they just happen to be playing as well, and they have a shocker again. So, you can look at a player and think, yeah, I would. And you could always take that risk if you really, really wanted to, but then you've got to live with the consequences if it goes tits up, basically. So it's what scouting is. Scouting is all about minimizing risk, because every transfer, no matter who you're buying from where, like we could sign Messi, and you think Messi in the Northern Premier League, no problem. But there's still there is still a risk. The risk might be 0.1 million zeros and 1, but you've got to do your homework because you've got to minimize the risk. And for us as a club, we don't have millions of pounds. We don't have hundreds of thousands of pounds to waste. So we've got to try and do the right thing for the club and do our homework on players as well.
So why the hell are you looking at Messi then?
Well, you won't know. Yeah, this is the thing. I mean, Paris and the Northeast. I mean, I know where I'd rather live.
Look, I'm no scout, but I can tell you something. That Argentinian kid, he's pretty good.
Yeah, he can play.
What I've seen.
I'll take your word for it if it happens.
Trust me on this one.
So when you're turning up to watch players, what are the first things you look for, right? What are the first things that you kind of go, right, he can do this, this, and this. We're off to a good start.
I think sort of it's bad because it sort of is all based on what position they are. So like, okay, I don't know, say like central midfield. I like seeing sort of like spatial awareness. So like players who are on the move that are finding little pockets of space to be able to pick the ball in or offer to pick the ball up in, and that kind of thing. It's really important because you do see you can see very static players. So players that are technically really good and the ping and passes about and stuff like that, but it's almost like a chore for them to get on the ball.
Yeah.
I like, for me, there's a lot of things. It depends on the level. I mean, for us, we're in quite a physical league. So players that sort of stand out that I think you could hack it, you could do it in our league. And I don't mean they've got to be 6'3" and all massive. Right. They can be small, they can be little lads, but they're clever about things. They understand that maybe I'm a little bit smaller, so I need to play a bit neater. I need to play a little bit more clever. Fitness and stuff like that, because we're on that cusp in our league where there are professional clubs or clubs that are wanting to be professional, and then the real sort of semi-pro. And there were lads who were really good footballers, but maybe don't look after themselves as much.
Okay.
So I want to see lads, the way we want to play, we need lads that are fit. So you might be really, really technical, but if you're going to be blown out your ass after 55 minutes, then no, there's no point. There's no point. A braveness, a calmness on the ball. I don't want to see players that are like rushing, especially when they're under no pressure, because that annoys us so much. I hate writing that down on my notes. Like rushers play under minimal pressure. Right. They look up and see a guy that's 10 yards away from them, and you think, don't worry, don't panic. Yeah. And they're like, oh no, and just hoof the ball somewhere, and you think, oh, come on, just have a bit of confidence in yourself. And maybe, it is hard. It really is. And I'm there judging, because that's all a scout does. I'm judging players, and I'm thinking, well, I'd probably shit myself if some guy was running at us and I had my foot on the ball. But, it's this kind of thing that if we need certain players. And And then it's the usual, strikers. What are they like in the box? Can they find space? Can they finish? A variety of finishers. Are you wanting wingers that are quick and are going to burst past people and put the ball in the box? Or are you wanting someone who's maybe a little bit more technical, who's going to cut inside and have a strike a bit like this, like an inverted winger or an inside forward type thing? So I suppose a lot of that comes from what the club wants, your understanding of how your team wants to play, and like what the manager or whoever or your chief scout. So I might say to the lads, like, look, we want a right back who is your modern wing back type footballer, who's going to get up and down, and they're going to get good balls into the box and blah, 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 blah. That's coming from me. So then the lads know, right, I've seen this right back who is superb defensively, but when he gets over the halfway line, he's absolutely useless. Now, is there much point? Yeah, you can say, well, I saw this lad and he was really good defensively, and we might mark him down as there's someone to keep an eye on, but you're not going to recommend that we sign him because he doesn't fit what we're wanting from that player. So, yeah, again, I've gone a very long way around to say
no, this is good.
It all really does. There's so many factors about what you need to look for, but everyone gets the little favorites as well. Everyone, you see a lot of it on like Twitter and social media that you do end up seeing like a lot of players. So like, I don't know, I like a tough tackler central midfielder. I like that kind of player, or like a tough tackler box to box, like Stevie Gerrard used to be, like smash someone and then drive forward with the ball and whatever. But I just think I love that. So when I see that on the pitch, you have to stop yourself again from falling in love with a player like that. Because everyone else might rate him 6 out of 10, and I see him smash somebody and then dribble the ball forward and try and go for goal from 30 yards, and I think 10 out of 10 player. So you've got to rein yourself in a little bit sometimes.
And I guess that's also the other way around. Like, you might fall in love too easily with certain players because they fit exactly the characteristics that you're looking for. And then I imagine that there are other players whose characteristics you don't really like, and it takes a little more time to be like it did for Ruairi to finally say that Rafael Leao is a good forward for
It took me a long time. It took me a long time.
Took him about 2 years. But I wanted to ask you, are you also the scout for the goalkeepers? Is that a separate job? Do you do both?
Yeah, so I do as well. Now, it's really hard. So it's probably the one position where I know what I would want from a goalkeeper, but if we were looking at like as a chief scout, and we said we need a number one, we need a really top quality goalkeeper, I would have players that I think, I like A, B, and C, but I'd maybe want a goalkeeping coach to come with us to maybe go and have a look, because it is a very specialised position. I know there are clubs, aren't there? So like, it was recently Brighton were advertising online, and I can't remember the lad's name who I think got a role of like, were they looking for like scouts for centre backs or defenders? Okay. Like position specific scouting is maybe I should say position specific scouts is maybe the next way that certain clubs that have got the finances to do it, maybe that's the way forward. So you'd maybe have like, I don't know, 11 senior scouts, one for each position of your ideal formation, and then players or other scouts would filter into them, or maybe if your general scouts had picked out players, then the position specific guy would go and run the rule over it. But I think goalkeepers is a really difficult one. So I would put a lot of trust in speaking to our club's goalkeeping coach, or maybe if you're lucky enough to have a scout who had played as a goalkeeper at some level, who had a little bit more of that understanding, because as much as you can watch it, sometimes we can be quite critical about what is a goalkeeping error or a goalkeeping mistake. You know what I mean? Compared to an outfield player, it can be sometimes not black and white, but the grey area can be a little bit less for an outfield player, I think, than a goalkeeper, unless you really have an eye for goalkeepers.
Look, I love what you're saying. I recently met, I talked about it on the pod, this guy who used to play as a goalkeeper, and the way he was talking about the position, he was using words I'd never heard before. And then when he asked me what was my favorite save of all time, I said the Julio Cesar on Messi when Inter played them in the semifinals back in the day. And he said, that was a beautiful save to watch, but it was the wrong type of save. If you really want to pinpoint the thing, that was not the right save that he should have gone for. He got the ball. That's all it matters, but it's very different. So I get what you're saying. Very interesting. Thank you.
Is it a position that, because I was going to get onto how you spot like a player's mentality, and I feel like with goalkeepers, is that the position where it's like more important or most important that they have the right mentality as well?
Yeah, probably, because I mean, you talk about a lot of things. So like say there's always this Jordan Pickford thing, isn't there, when he played Newcastle? And a lot of people seem to think he gets himself too hyped up about it. And I know when like we're going back a bit now, but Joe Hart in that final Euros when he was like England #1, and you saw him in the tunnel, and to me, he's there's bouncing around because you're like, yeah, I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this. I'm going to go out and have a game in my life. And he just, and again, I know Joe Hart and this is just me at my level talking about this. But for me, he looked a little bit like he'd gone from that, yeah, I'm ready for this, into almost like nervous energy. Yeah. And it was he went a bit too far. I don't know, maybe has it been a bit hypercritical of things, but I think it stands out a lot more. I think outfield players can maybe hide it a little bit more because maybe if you're a bit nervous, and we'll go back to it, maybe a bit nervous as a centre half or a fullback or a central midfielder, and you get a little crunch and tackle in on someone early and it helps dispense it, or you ping a lovely pass, or you take a sort of strike in anger and like release it a little bit. And do goalkeepers necessarily have that? Striking you make a big save, early. They always say like, oh, he's made a save. It sort of calmed him down a little bit or whatever. And then we might just write it off as some football commentary trope that no one really cares about. But is there not maybe a little bit of truth to it where you do that and then it's like, right, I've made that first save. I'm just going to be all right.
Because I know that it's one of the things that I'll talk about my club, Arsenal, with Aaron Ramsdale. It was one of the things that they considered when they scouted him was how quickly he recovers from making mistakes and how quickly he recovers from conceding goals. And I know that like mentality was a huge thing. Like, how do you, like, talking more generally now, not just in goalkeepers, how do you learn about a player's mentality? Like, do you have to get to know them as a person? Are you talking about people they've worked with? Like, how do you find out about it?
Yeah, so you can do all that, like your due diligence stuff, talking to people. For us in non-league, it's a little bit more difficult because if I start going to a club further down asking a lad about, oh, what's so and so like, they might not be on a contract, and they might shove them on a contract just because another club's interested. You know what I mean? But yeah, you can do that kind of thing. You can look into social media and all that kind of stuff, which obviously all the top level clubs do. But then on a pitch, sometimes, funnily enough, I was talking to, I won't name the player that I was on about. I was talking to a lad about it at work. So there was a player I used to watch, and I used to really rate him in general. But then what you noticed as a pattern was, if he gave the ball away, rather than then the neck, it was like it got into his head. So if he made a bad pass from, I don't know, 15 yards and it got intercepted, the next sort of time he got on the ball, it looked like he felt like he needed to play like a Hollywood ball, or he needed to take the rest of the team on and do something to be like back in the game. Whereas for me, maybe all he needed to do was just keep it nice and simple for 5-10 minutes, because it was sod's law. The next time he tried to play the Hollywood ball, that'd go wrong. He tried to take someone on, he'd get tackled. And then you could see he was getting more and more and more into his own head, really. Whereas maybe if you just calmed down and played nice and tidy and little short passes, yeah, it wouldn't have looked great. But settle yourself back down and then start trying to do it. So it's like those kind of things as well. Now, it's hard to judge. It is hard to judge because you're just out there. You don't necessarily know what's going on. We did a lot of this when I did academy stuff as well. When I sort of first started off, I did some stuff for Wolverhampton Wanderers Academy. And you do, and like talking to lads that had done it for a long time. And then we did some of the FA things like FA Talent ID 1 and 2 and stuff. And in that, especially, you don't know what's going on off the pitch as well. Like in young'uns, there's a lot of things that can affect them. Even in adult football, first team level, you don't, again, at my level, you don't know how lads have been at work and stuff like that. You've got to expect these lads, they've got a normal job, and then they're turning up on a Tuesday night, finishing at 5 o'clock, turning up at the club at 6 o'clock because they've got a game that night. What's been happening off the pitch? What's been happening at work? So again, it comes down to watching them over and over again. Has it happened in one match, or is it a repeating pattern? Every time you go and watch them, you notice that the same things are happening over and over again. So yeah, it's a cutthroat. Football in general is a cutthroat thing, and you have to be cutthroat at any level. But there will be little things that put you off a player where you can never be 100% sure or have 100% of the answers unless you went up and asked them yourself. But you'd end up getting yourself into a load of bother if you did that. So you've got to trust your sources. You've got to be able to talk to people. But yeah, the mentality thing, I don't know. You do. It is a big thing. You want winners. Every team needs winners. Every team needs, am I allowed to say it? Every team needs arseholes that are going to kick people. Because this is a thing, talking to lads, you'll know lads yourself, and I know lads that are in the Northern League that are technically, they're too good for the Northern League. But they're not nasty enough, because professional footballers are nasty. Even nice professional footballers are nasty, because if a break's on, you do your professional foul on the halfway line.
Yeah.
Not everyone will do that. I wouldn't like to think the lads away from me. I wouldn't have just taken someone out. Sometimes you've got to do it, but that's not in my nature. So you know what I mean? So every team needs them. You need some people who are a little bit nasty. The further you go up the leagues, like I say, your nasty players are good footballers. Your Roy Keanes and Patrick Vieira's could be nasty, but they were good footballers. Graham Souness, for as much as everyone loves calling him an absolute nutter on Sky Sports, was nasty as hell. Yeah. But if you watch him, he's still a good footballer.
Very good footballer. Very good.
Successful teams have nasty people in them. It's all just part of that mentality as well, isn't it?
Nice. Well, before we kind of slowly start to wrap things up, I wanted to ask you like one kind of final question, I suppose. If for our listeners, they want to watch a game and notice more about a player, right? They want to learn more about how a player plays. What advice would you give to someone if they want to kind of scout a player at home, so to speak, if they want to learn more about a performance?
I would say go to a live game so you can watch that player, because if you're watching, say we shove the telly on tonight after we've finished and we watch Man U, Chelsea or whatever, and you think, I'm going to watch that player, well, it's not going to focus on that player. And what you need to do is focus on the player. So I suppose it's anyone. And if you've got people like who watch it who's thinking, oh, I'd love to give scouting a bit of a go. Yeah, go for it. I think it's great. But go to a local club, go to a non-league club and sort of say, like, can I do a bit something for you? If you want to get maybe a few report examples, go to your local club, and you might not know very much about that team. So you don't have a preconceived idea of how a player's going to do, and just pick a player and just follow that player and see what they do. Movement off the ball is as important as movement and what they do on the ball. And then just focus on them and see what they do. Even if you just jot yourself a few notes down and think, yeah, this was good that he did X, Y, and Z. I didn't really think he did this very well. Off the ball movement, he maybe didn't go to offer for the ball very much. He maybe didn't position himself very much when the opposition had the ball, or he might have been fantastic. He might have noticed space, whatever exploitable space, and moved into it or cut off passing lanes or whatever it is. So yeah, just go out and focus on a player and watch and give it a go, because it's the only way you're going to get better. Like I say, from my sort of idea of traditional scouting, you just need to be out there, and the more you watch and the more you get used to it, the more you talk to other people, other scouts, the more you read about things, the more you listen to the likes of this with more professional people telling you what to do. But the more you learn, it's like anything else. The more you learn, the more you do things, the better you're going to get. So, and it might not be for you. I've had lads that have come and I've sort of been out to games with them and sort of talked through things, and their idea of scouting is turn up, watch a match, go, yeah, he was good or he wasn't good. Because some people don't see the bigger picture, and then you sort of sit down and talk and explain, well, actually, what you need to do is this, this, and this. You've got to travel. You've got to write your report up. You've got to talk to people, network. It's not just maybe once a week. You've got to be out. Bloody, it takes over your life. Blah, 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 blah. And they don't like it. And there's no harm in giving it a go and not enjoying it. But give it a go and see if you do.
Beautiful. Beautiful. David, I really, really enjoyed that. That was fascinating. Just before we let you go, so Morpeth, where can people find them? Where can they find you on social media? Give yourself a plug.
Yeah. So my Twitter thing is at Bujara 1985, and Bujara 1985. Morpeth Town are on there on Twitter. I like a load of their posts, so you'll be able to get through. And I'll have a cheeky little thing that I do have a blog that talks about scouting and football and stuff, and that is called The Remote Part.
Beautiful.
So if you Google The Remote Part, you'll get a load of stuff, because it's an Idlewild album, but also I named my blog that as well, so it should be up there somewhere.
Sounds beautiful. Very poetic. Before we let you go, I'm a language geek. To ask you something, what's your last name from?
Poland. Yeah. So my granddad came over during the Second World War when he was like 15. Yeah.
Right.
That was a bit of it.
I was picturing something completely different, like Spanish, Bujara or something like that.
Yeah. When I went to university, because there's Bujara, I think, is an Indian cricketer. So the lads on my floor expected that was going to be Indian.
I did kind of expect someone to. I thought it would be Indian. I'll be honest. I thought it was an Indian name. Yeah, Poland has thrown me out completely.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff. Thank you so much, David, for agreeing to come on. We're gonna leave you here with us as we send off our listeners from this episode. Guys, remember to follow us on Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod, on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, and give a cheeky little follow to our sponsor at Sports Club Maps. I'm going to send you all off with our customary end of the episode quote, and this time around is from Mino Raiola, the Revenant himself, who posted on Twitter, current health condition, fucking fuming because they have reported my death for the second time in the space of 4 months. Now it looks like I can even resuscitate. Good luck, Mino Raiola. A lot of people don't really like you, but I think that you've done better to football than Inter's goalkeeper, Jonit Radu. God damn it. We'll talk to you guys again live on YouTube and Twitch on Monday night. Have a great footballing weekend. Bye, Rory, and bye, David.
Bye, guys.
Cheers, mate.